All right, let's dive straight into this explainer. Today, we're breaking down the exact, totally jargon-free framework that separates people who build real, lasting wealth from those who are stuck running on the paycheck-to-paycheck treadmill. If you've ever felt like, no matter how hard you work or how much you earn, you're just constantly treading water, well, you are in exactly the right place. We are going to map out precisely how the top earners think about and actually distribute their income. So here's a massive mindset shift we need to make right from the jump. The system we live in is literally designed to keep you working just to pay for basic survival. Stuff like food, shelter, water. It essentially wants you feeling rich on payday and completely broke by the end of the month. To break free from this modern-day cycle, you absolutely must start acquiring assets. Because think about it, if your money isn't working for you in the background, you are going to be forced to work forever. Wealth really isn't built by just collecting a standard salary. It's built by owning things. Businesses, assets, trusts, or having incredibly rare skills. The absolute richest people in the world, they're entrepreneurs, investors, inheritors, and top-tier talent. 0% of them are just employees solely relying on a biweekly paycheck. So our main goal today is to get you the heck out of that 0% category. To make that shift, we're going to use the 25-15-15-10 rule. We'll cover how to fund your growth, build a solid safety net, handle your essential living costs, and finally, reward yourself guilt-free. Think of this proportional breakdown as the ultimate fix to stop being owned by the system. Because it is never really about how much money you make. It is entirely about how you manage it. This specific framework ensures that every single dollar gets a very specific wealth-building job the literal minute it hits your bank account. Okay, let's get into step 1. Fund your growth, using 25% of your income. Listen to this because it's absolutely crucial. The power of compound interest is staggering. Let's take Billy. Billy starts investing at age 20, just quietly putting away $200 a month. Now compare him to Phil, who waits until he's 30 to start, but he tries to catch up by investing $300 a month. Even though Billy invested less of his own money overall, about $96K compared to Phil's $108K, starting just 10 years earlier netted Billy nearly $600,000 more than Phil by age 60. Time in the market is literally your greatest asset. Now, when you pick those growth assets to get those sweet compound returns, you've got to climb the risk ladder very carefully. Ideally, you want to start right at the bottom with index funds and highly paid skills before taking any crazy high-risk moonshots. Index funds let you own a tiny slice of the entire stock market, just growing quietly in the background. And mastering a high-income skill, something like coding or sales, that is the fastest return on investment you will ever see. Save the crypto and the wild individual stock picking for way later when you have a rock-solid foundation. Believe me, Dogecoin is not a retirement plan. But wait, here is a massive secret of the wealthy. If you use the wrong accounts for those investments, you are basically handing over thousands of dollars in totally unnecessary taxes. Always, always maximize legal, tax-advantaged vehicles in your country first. If you're in the UK, utilize a stocks and shares ISA where your earnings are completely tax-free. In the US, leverage a Roth IRA for that tax-free growth. And for sure, max out your 401k if your employer offers a match, because guys, that is literally free money. Once your account is actually set up, just automate your investments on payday into a simple, hands-off 3-fund portfolio. You do not need to be stressing out checking charts every single day. By putting 60% in US stocks, 30% in international stocks, and 10% in stable bonds, you effortlessly capture global growth. Once that's automated, you just stop fiddling with it and redirect all that energy into increasing your primary income. All right, moving on to step 2, build a safety net with 15% of your income. Let me share a quick, kind of scary story from our source material about a young guy who bought a VW Golf with a loan, only to have the engine completely blow up just 3 months later. Because he had zero safety net, he was absolutely terrified of losing his job without a car to get to work. So what did he do? He had to borrow even more money, piling on bad debt and severe stress. That single unexpected breakdown set his financial progress back an entire year. That story perfectly hits the nail on the head as to why you need a margin of error in life. Most people don't actually have a money problem. They have a stability problem. Without a buffer, the moment an emergency strikes, you'll be forced to sell off your investments at a massive loss just to survive the week. You have got to protect your progress. So, what's the magic number for that safety net? It's 5. You want to calculate your monthly baseline. And I mean absolute bare bones essentials here, like rent and utilities, not your Netflix subscription or Uber Eats. Take that raw survival number and multiply it by 5 to get your target safety net. Stacking this fund can happen super fast, but you've got to follow 3 strict rules. First, it must be easy to access, like within 24 hours. Second, zero risk. Do not gamble your emergency fund in the stock market. And third, it still needs to earn for you, so park it in a high-yield savings account getting around 4 to 5%. Automate a 15% sweep from your paycheck, maybe use some roundup apps on your daily spending, and if you ever withdraw from it, immediately focus on replacing that money.
Moving right along to step 3, cover your essentials using exactly 50% of your income.
This contrast is wild, but it perfectly illustrates how over 60% of high earners are still living paycheck to paycheck. They get entirely caught up in looking wealthy instead of actually accumulating invisible wealth. Think about it. The guy in the least luxury car wearing designer gear might literally only have $40 in the bank. Meanwhile, the person in basic clothes driving a 10-year-old used car is quietly compounding thousands of dollars in the background. When you're trying to keep your essential spending to exactly 50%, you can't just rely on willpower. Honestly, willpower completely vanishes the second you're stressed or tired. You need to train yourself to stop and ask this exact question before buying anything. Is this an impulse purchase? If that urge to buy is a yes for an impulse, force yourself through a quick 3-step filter. First, use the 7-day rule. Just pause for a week. Seriously, usually the urge completely fades. Second, ask yourself if you're buying it for the shiny brand name or for its actual value. And third, will this item actively improve your daily life? You've got to be highly intentional, not just chasing a quick dopamine hit. But listen, don't sweat the $5 lattes if you want to make a massive dent in your expenses. To actually hit that 50% threshold, you have to aggressively shrink your 2 massive wealth killers, housing and transportation. Renegotiate your rent, or maybe house hack by splitting a place with roommates, and absolutely avoid the trap of leased cars that just bleed your monthly cash flow dry. Buy a used, reliable vehicle or take public transit. Shrink the big 2, and I promise you the rest of your budget just naturally falls into place. Finally, step 4, reward yourself guilt-free with that last 10% of your income. Saving without joy? Honestly, it just feels like a punishment. Skipping this step entirely is a massive, massive mistake. It can lead to severe physical and mental burnout. Just like the host from our source material who worked so relentlessly building his businesses that he literally developed stress-induced shingles. You absolutely must allow yourself to enjoy the fruits of your labor so you actually have the energy to keep going. But hey, don't blow this guilt-free 10% on random junk you're going to forget about in a week. Instead, pour it into these 4 high-value categories that genuinely refuel you and make this whole wealth-building journey totally worthwhile. Use it on vacations, which are literal investments in your mental and physical health. Fund to the hobbies that keep your passions alive. Pay for experiences that build up your social network, and buy thoughtful gifts that strengthen your deepest relationships. The secret sauce here is setting a hard boundary. Preload the fun by automating a 10% transfer into a totally separate account. Let's call it your joy jar. But here is the golden rule. When that account hits 0, the fund stops until next month. No exceptions whatsoever. This limitation actually forces you to prioritize truly memorable, amazing experiences over casual, mindless spending. By automating this entire 25-15-50-10 framework, you systematically stop being owned by your paycheck, and you start accumulating real, tangible power over your own life. So I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought to kickstart your journey into the 1%. What will you choose to own today? An asset that builds your future, or a liability that keeps you working forever? The choice is entirely yours. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you next time.